Hello and welcome to episode 1240 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Monday, December 18th. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this morning by Justin Mason. Justin, good morning, sir.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Have you been traded by the Braves?
I have not.
Well, if they pick you up, they're probably going to dump you.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty par for the course at this point.
Yeah, they get a guy like, well, where are they going to fit? On another team because they're just going to flip them. They actually couldn't get that done with Matt Carpenter, so he was cut. But that's the closest thing to news from over the weekend. So we're going to dive right back into second base, and we're not going to have a real preamble here because it is Monday. You got your chat coming up, and I want to get to all these today. So let's dive right in. We last left off with Luis Urias. He was in his own special tier, so that was kind of a perfect cutoff, to be honest. You know, he's such a unique player. We talked about how you want to draft him if you're going to, and we basically both said that you probably shouldn't. We don't really want to. But let's get into the next group here. It's a group of solid veterans, right? And so they do different things, but because they've all been around for a decent bit, you kind of know what you're going to get. We got these 7 guys here. It's a little bit of a what you see is what you get. And the prices vary a decent bit from top to bottom. We got Ketel Marte at ADP 124, Thairo Estrada 148, Jonathan India 193, Ryan McMahon 221, Brandon Drury 237, Brandon Lowe 269, Jorge Polanco 272, and Luis Rengifo 275. So we're going a 150 pick range here, but I'm grouping them all together because they are the veterans. I'm not going to make you pick your favorite because, again, it's a huge group, and I do want to get into all of them. Let's start with the most expensive guy. By far, it is Ketel Marte. He quietly kind of got back on track last year. Not back on track is kind of an unfair way to put it, too, because he's not really
He stayed on the field.
But exactly. Like 2022, you got 558 plate appearances, 12 homers, 5 steals, 240. I guess it is getting back on track. That was a disappointing year. But 25 homers, a big spike back up from 2019 when he hit 32. We hadn't seen that. Part of it was health. Like you said, played 150 games, 650 plate appearances, ripped 25 bombs, still only 8 steals. I mean, this guy, he doesn't run. He has decent speed, even still at 29. It's never really been Ketel Marte's thing, but his batting average bounced back up to 276, 82 ribbies, 94 runs, and of course that big playoff run with the D-backs during which he was excellent. Ketel Marte at pick 124. Are you back in at that price? Or are you a little nervous given that this is only the second 150-game season we've seen from the will-be 30-year-old going into the season?
I'm okay with that price. I mean, he's pretty much had 2 healthy-ish seasons in a row.
Yeah,
and
pretty healthy in 22.
Yeah, I mean, he only played 137 games in 22, but I mean, that's great for him. Like, if you could guarantee me 137 games, 550 plate appearances, I think I'd be okay with that. The problem for me is he's kind of in this no man's land in terms of ADP, where I'm probably just never picking him there. I'm probably just going to wait until the rest of the guys.
Yep.
I don't, in years past, I've had really, really strong feelings about not wanting to draft Ketel Marte because of his injury profile. But this will be the, first year where he's finished on the field healthy. And the price has gone back up to a point where, like, I'm just not super excited to draft him. I don't think there's anything wrong with skills. Skills are great. I kind of believe in what we saw, and he is on a team that is getting better and better. So there's nothing wrong with drafting Ketel Marte. I just don't think I will be doing it unless he drops, 30, 40 picks in a draft.
Yeah, and I just don't really see that. In fact, there are times that Marte goes inside the top 100 given his range. He also played 17 extra games in October, and you could almost make a case, well, like, now you're a bit more nervous. It's 167 games. Is he going to break down now after that? I don't know, right? Or maybe he goes Ian Kinsler on us and finds health in his late 20s, early 30s after having some injury issues early in his career. That's what we saw with Kinsler. He became an Iron Man. And maybe that'll be the fate for Marte, but you're kind of paying for it, like you said. And so I'm with you. I think I'm kind of passing at that price, even though I don't think people that do take him are completely out of pocket. Let's go to a guy that I got wrong last year. I really didn't buy the Thairo Estrada experience. I was like, fade. And he goes 14-23. basically exactly what he did the year before, and he needed 11 fewer plate appearances and 20 fewer games to do it. He also added 11 points to his batting average, so I was colossally wrong on Thairo Estrada. 271 average, 14 homers, 23 steals, only 63 runs. That's more a product of y'all's team. 49 ribs, same thing, than anything that he didn't do. But now this is 2 great years in a row from Thairo Estrada. This year you got to pay a bit more at pick 141. Are you down for that with Thairo Estrada? I said 148. By the way, we're going to be going off of a more recent ADP that we're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
These numbers were written on Friday, and I didn't want to go update them. So if there's a big discrepancy, we'll say, oh, this guy's been up over the last few weeks. But go ahead with Thairo Estrada.
He's up to 141. But I kind of feel the same way about Estrada as I do Marte, which is I'm fine with the price. I don't think the price is egregious. I don't think it's bad. He's going to play every day that he's healthy, and he's dual eligible at second and short, which is always nice. The Giants suck, though, and that park sucks. And the skills are fine. Skills are great, actually. 92% zone contact is like elite. I just don't think there's enough juice to go around for a guy like Estrada. And who knows what a new manager is going to come in and do in terms of like where he hits in the lineup. Maybe he hits fairly high, or maybe he's batting like 7th, and he's batting 7th on a team that is as punchless as the Giants. That's going to be really ugly for his counting stats. So I'm not enthused. Like, again, he's one of those guys. He dropped 30-40 picks. Maybe I think about it, but honestly, I don't see like that much of a difference between Thairo Estrada and some of the other names that we're going to cover today.
Absolutely, especially in this particular tier as we get lower. Your boy Jonathan India at 193. There's been talks about will he be traded? Won't he be traded? We don't know. He has a wide range at 161 as a min, 223 as a max. We've talked a lot about Cincinnati and everything. Right now, we don't know if they're going to make a deal, so just operate as though everyone's still there. How does that make you feel about Jonathan India as a top 200 pick coming off of a modest season where he battled some injuries? He was just kind of a league average bat with 17 homers and 14 steals. What do you think?
I mean, I like the price on India, and that's like the best thing going for him, because I'm afraid of afraid of the health profile, and I'm also afraid of the playing time. They have said that they're not looking to trade India, that they like that depth, but that doesn't mean, especially with Candelario, because right before they signed Candelario, there was a report like, oh, Jonathan India is going to play first. Now, I don't think that's happening as much anymore. And I don't know what to do with him at this point.
I understand that damn Candelario move.
I don't either. Like, I know there were people on people on Twitter like yelling at me, including our buddy Mike Curlin, like, "Oh, Candelario's going to be great in that park." It's like it has nothing to do with
that's not
Candelario.
The point. Yes,
like it has zero to do with Candelario and everything to do with what the hell the team is doing when they could be putting $45 million towards a pitcher and not $45 million towards a 30-something-year-old Heimer Candelario. So I don't get it. But as far as India goes, like, I think it's a good price. The problem is, for me, is like I just don't know, one, if he can stay upright. He's been injured, a good amount in the last
2 straight years, yeah.
And 2, even if he is healthy, is he playing every day? Because I think there's an argument to say nobody's playing every day, except for maybe Matt McLean.
I think McLean and I think Ellie's going to get the opportunity to.
I think Ellie could start the year in the minors.
He could, but
so like I think at this point, like,
who plays short then though?
McLean, and then you put India at second.
Oh yeah, I think India should DH.
I think they should trade like 3 guys so we could just know what their lineup is every day. So
can't trade 3. You can't get rid of all the depth, but with the Candelario signing, they could now. I think they can more afford a move of somebody. Maybe it's CES, get something for him. But yeah, that Candelario move continues to perplex me. India, not a terrible price in the late 100s there, but not somebody I'm necessarily chasing just because things are so muddy and his health profile. Let's jump down into the 200s then. I think Ryan McMahon might be a bit of a value down here at 221 in Colorado. I feel like he's just being a bit glossed over because of how wretched Colorado is in general. Now, I know a 240 average doesn't really get anybody going, but 23 homers, 70 ribs, 80 runs, 5 chip and steals, who cares? I mean, he is pretty consistent for that outside of 2020, where he was 0 for 1 in the 52 games. He had 5 in 19, 6 in 21, 7 in 22, and 5 last year. So, I mean, you are getting that little chip in 5 pretty consistently, but you're looking at 20 and 75, and 75 is about what you're looking at with a 240-ish, 250-ish average, which I think is pretty fair down in the early 200s. ADP of 221 for Ryan McMahon. Do you think he's a decent buy as a second, third base dual eligible guy?
It's so weird. Like he had a real degradation in terms of zone contact. 2022, McMahon had, and I'm trying to find it now, had an 83% zone contact, which is, maybe a little bit below league average, but close enough. 76% in 2023, which just seems really odd to have like that huge of a drop, because that's getting down to like Galloian numbers.
You don't want to be matching him.
Yeah.
And anything but raw power, maybe.
Or walk rate. Walk rate's
fine.
Yeah.
Walk rate for sure.
And it's so like the 240 batting average, like I don't think that's necessarily coming up, even though he lives in BABIP heaven in Colorado.
He had a 326 BABIP to get that 240.
Exactly, and he's a career 314 guy. So what happened if he continues these kind of contact numbers? Like there's a potential 230 batting average or 225 batting average in there, and he doesn't have prodigious power where you're getting 35 plus home runs or potential for it. Like I think in a good season you're looking maybe 26, 27 type thing. So I don't know, he's a guy that I've really liked in the past, not so interested anymore.
I think that's not completely out of pocket. I actually took him in our Gladiator with the second, third base eligibility. I actually took him ahead of ADP, so I wouldn't say I'm enamored with Ryan McMahon, but felt like the right guy at the time. It was a bit of a needs-based pick when I did take him. I think I'll get my 20, 75, 75 with the 245 average. That's fine, but there is some concerns. The 32% K rate, it's another big jump. And like you said, the swing and miss there, if it eats into any more of the BABIP, then we're really looking at some trouble with the average for McMahon.
Yeah, I think the problem with, and the reason why I understand like you making that move on McMahon is when you get past McMahon, you start getting into some massive question marks. Like we know McMahon's going to play every day. Like that's just, he's going to play. He's probably going to get, low to mid 20s home runs, a 240-ish batting average, and some decent runs and RBIs. You start getting past McMahon and you start going into playing time concerns or injury concerns or overall team construct concerns. And so I can understand him kind of being like the line of demarcation.
Exactly. And that's what it felt like there. So I was like, let me just get this guy who plays every single day in the best park in the universe. Maybe I get something better than what he's done. If I just get another carbon copy, I can live with that, especially because playing time is so important in Gladiators too. So I do think just in a Gladiator in general, all else being equal, McMahon does move up a little bit in my book as is. One of those team construction concerns you probably have would be with Brandon Drury, who I generally like. I became a fan, with the breakout in Cincinnati a couple years ago, and I feel like last year was a pretty solid follow-up to that. 26 homers and 83 ribbies. And that's, pretty darn good. 262 average, looked a lot like he looked like in 2022. Now, don't forget, he spent a bunch of time in San Diego kind of smoothing down his numbers after the Cincy explosion, but ends up putting up, like I said, a damn near carbon copy season. Should play every day with LA, but it's, Trout, Drury, and who else? Like Taylor Ward, if he stays healthy. Anthony Rendon, if he stays healthy. Can Mickey Moniak build on what he did last year? Is Logan O'Hoppe ready to roll? Is Nolan Sean?
Are they actually going to play Rengifo? Or like
exactly. We're going to get to Rengifo in a moment too. So team construction, when you mentioned that, I thought of Drury right away. because I do worry about that. But 237 seems like a pretty decent price. I think he's back down to no, he still has dual eligibility, first and second. What do you think of Brandon Drury coming off of another solid season?
I kind of like Drury. I
Me
think
too.
why take Ryan McMahon when you can take Brandon Drury a little bit later?
That's
And
fair.
he does.
I needed the third base eligibility is the answer for me specifically, but
That's fair.
in general, I do agree. I'd take Drury first at 1-1.
So yeah, no, I mean, I think Drury is a fine little player. He's not going to do anything special, but he, mid-20s home runs. He's probably going to bat towards the top-ish of the lineup, or at least the middle of the lineup.
Certainly should,
because there's nobody else who can hit other than Mike Trout. Like
Taylor Ward, it just has to stay healthy. Taylor Ward's skills, I think, are
at least by
maybe
August there won't be anybody.
Yeah. I wouldn't say unimpeachable, but I would say pretty strong for Taylor Ward. But you just can't bank on him for health. He's going to be 30 years old, so it's a little toss up there. Let's go into another Brandon then, Brandon Lowe, because he's a different case where I think if you want more the stability of playing time and some guarantees there, you take Drury. But if you want to spike something big, you wait a couple rounds and you take Brandon Lowe, whose price is actually falling a little bit because I had him at 269 here, and now when we look at the updated version, which is just over the last month of drafts, it's 12 drafts. 279. So we got Brandon Lowe down here. I actually took him in the Gladiator as well. So I had McMahon and Lowe. I took him right around that ADP of 267, at pick 267, I should say. We know health is the biggest issue, but he does have major health concerns that don't just evaporate with turning the calendar to a new season. So what do you think of Brandon Lowe, excuse me? Is he ready to bounce back and do something big, or is he just going to be upper 20s homers, 230, 240 something batting average? Is there anything there for Brandon Lowe that you're chasing?
I don't think so. And like after like an episode last episode where I was like raving about everybody, like we're now into the I don't care about these guys. Like the injury issues are just too great for me. He's had like chronic back issues. He's he's coming off a knee issue. He's supposedly fully healed and ready to go. But there's always something with Lowe, and like he's also a guy that probably should be in a strict platoon, and on the team that platoons the most. And I do wonder at what point like he just can't get to 500 plate appearances because of his platoon issues, because of injuries. And I'm not drafting guys where I'm like the ceiling is 500 plate appearances, at least not this early.
Yeah. I think the ceiling is more than that, but I understand the concerns for sure. I think what's working in Lau's favor with regards to a platoon is the players behind him are really bad. Like I don't buy Taylor Walls to really jump in there and do a whole lot.
You say that, but Taylor Walls is great defensively.
Yeah, but like
which matters to the Rays.
75 WRC plus will wear thin quickly. And that's what he has for his career. So, there's a push-pull there. I think they want Brandon Lowe playing damn near daily, as long as he's not putting up another 512 OPS against lefties like he did last year. He's 721 for his career. He's, never really been good, but if he holds his own in the upper 600s, low 700s, I think they let him play more often than not, if his body holds up too. And that's the biggest issue. You underscored that at the outset. Health is a big concern, but that is why he's 269 and not 180 for Brandon Lowe.
He has one season in his career where he's got more than 450 plate appearances.
Yep. And it was that big 2021 season, 39.99. Damn, one away, a solo shot from 4,100. And I got to be honest, as close as it is to that, 4,100 looks so much better on the sheet than 39.99.
It's all right, so Brandon, digits of the 100.
Absolutely. Even more so than the 40, because even 39.100 would look so much hotter. It is that triple digit rollover. That
4,100 does feel better even than 39.100.
4,100 is hot.
Yeah.
Like that, you look at that and you're like, okay, this dude was a stud that year. Jorge Polanco, he probably has more name cachet than he does fantasy. And as you can tell by the price here, which I think is a pretty fair price. I don't really have a problem with 270s, 280s for him. He's at 272 on average. Problem is, is kind of bland what he delivers, but at least it's on a good team. So you're hoping that the runs and ribbies are pretty solid. He has his own bout of health issues, only played half the year last year, only 104 games the year before. So I think that's really pushing him down. His 2021, like Lau's, was quite nice with 33 homers. He was also 2 ribbies short of 100. Come on, guys. Just get to the 100. It makes you look so much cooler. But yeah, he hasn't really been the same since that big 2021 for Jorge Polanco. Do you still hold any love for him? Do you chase him at all at pick 270?
I think everything I just said on Brandon Lowe kind of applies to Polanco. Outside
with less upside on the skills, in my opinion.
Upside, yeah, exactly. Not to mention the Twins are shopping him, which tells me they don't want him as an everyday player.
Correct.
And I think they want to give his teammate Eduardo Julien everyday playing time. And so
honestly, I think he can already get that being a DH or even first base. But then I think they really want to see if Willie Castro, some of the stuff that he did last year, has some realness, or even Nick Gordon. I just think that they're done with Polanco. But obviously, as they're paying him right now, a decent sum, $10.5 million isn't crazy, but I think he's going to get playing time unless they can move him. 10.5 shouldn't be hard to move, though. So if somebody does, value him and thinks that they can play him at like a second base DH kind of half and half because he is a bad defender, they should be able to move him if they're motivated enough.
It has that feeling of like a keeper league where you someone in your league like keeps a player and you're like, huh, and then like they immediately after the keeper deadline is like, Jorge Polanco's available for deal. Yeah. And everybody's like, nobody wants Jorge.
No, why did you keep him? He's like, well, he was $3, right? Yeah. He's like 10.5 mil. That's not expensive for Polanco, but at the same time,
but now you're stuck with him.
Exactly. And he blocks off guys who could be better.
It is a good amount of money for a guy who's going to be a utility infielder.
Yep. And again, I'd rather just go Castro Gordon for the glove and see if their bat can match him, which I think in their best years they can easily match, if not exceed him. So yeah, not so much in on Jorge Polanco. Used to be years ago. Had some good times with Jorge Polanco when he was doing well, but now the health has just really become an issue. We mentioned Luis Rengifo, and you said, well, are they going to play him? Right now we got him penciled in the leadoff spot. I actually think Nolan Schaunwell's going to be able to bat up there. I think they liked what he was able to do, at least with getting on base. But is Rengifo an everyday guy for them at second base? He comes at a pretty fair price of $275 if he's going to play. Obviously, that's the big question right now. Is Luis Rengifo somebody that you're willing to take the shot on in the late 200s?
One, he is quadruple eligible, which I love. Absolutely love.
That's huge. Second, third, short outfield.
I also like the skills for the most part. Like he makes decent contact. He's not, a power hitter by any stretch of the imagination, but like I think Rengifo is one of those guys that like if given full-time playing time, he could be a really valuable accumulator with multi-positional eligibility.
Agreed.
And the price on him, $264, feels light. Now it's light because the Angels hate him. Like he only gets playing time when everybody else is hurt. Like
in fairness, though, that happens every year.
So, and that's why I'm willing to take the gamble because I don't think that's changing anytime soon. I mean,
they're not a healthier team
in terms of worst organization in all of sports and keeping people healthy.
It's been a nightmare for them. So let's do a hypothetical here.
Yeah.
Early January, they come out and they say he's our everyday second base and we're going to bat him lead off. Some news like that. And we know that stuff can be fleeting anyway, but let's say it comes out. Does that change Luis Rengifo's ADP tangibly? Do you think he would move up to, say, I don't know, upper 200, or low 200s in terms of the number? Do you think he would move inside the top 200? He's at 264 right now.
I don't think it would. Like, I don't think it's going to move him that high. Like, it could move him up into, like, the Ryan McMahon, Brandon Drury area, which is, like, 225.
That's a couple rounds. I'd be fine with that.
And I think I would be totally fine with that. Like, I think that's probably where, especially when we're talking, like, this time of year, we're talking draft champions. Obviously, Gladiator, he can't move guys around. He's just, in draft flexibility, I guess. But in draft champions, where you have these really, really deep rosters and you need to be able to cover, you need to have 3 to 4 guys to cover every infield position plus 10 outfielders. I want Rengifo because he gives me a lot of roster flexibility.
Yep.
Those of you who are like us who like deeper leagues, roster flexibility, especially when injuries hit. If you have, shallow benches or shallow IL spots, like Rengifo can cover a lot of ground for you. And I'm willing to take the gamble that this is finally the year. I think, obviously Ohtani leaving hurts the Angels, but what it does do for fantasy is give them the DH spot back to get other guys there, to give other guys like Rengifo full-time playing time in the field.
Yeah, because Rendon can maybe get some DH time to kind of protect his body. Drury can mix in there as well. Ward can mix in there. I believe Rengifo, he qualifies the outfield. So all 3 of those guys, he can play for. So they can DH. He goes and fills their spot, and maybe he eclipses that 127 mark. 127 games last year, 123 this past season for Rengifo. So we like him. The quad eligibility is great. Eligibility with crap skills, I still have some interest in draft champions just for the movement, so you have a body in. But quad eligibility with some decent skills as a kind of a average or slightly above average bat, I'm very interested in that at pick 270, 275. All right, let's talk about a couple rising rookies. You mentioned one of them earlier. Obviously, they're going to be sophomores now, but I wanted to get the double R alliteration there. Nolan Gorman, a guy that we had talked about, pretty much as he's been emerging. I think we had some decent thoughts to say about him last year. I know he's a guy that we've discussed in the past. I feel like his breakout kind of went under the radar this year. He had 27 homers in 119 games with 76 ribbies, 7 for 9 on the bases, 59 runs. Part of that's mostly the playing time and the lack of, maybe quality down at the bottom of the Cardinals lineup. Although that's not even that really. I think it's just the fact that he only played 464 plate appearances. Only hit 236, but I'll take all the rest of that with the batting average all day long. Is Nolan Gorman 30-plus homers waiting to happen here as at pick 187?
Probably not.
Oh, really? I think so. For some reason, I thought you were a bigger Gorman fan, too.
I have been a bigger Gorman fan. I don't know. There's so much swing and miss in the game. Just so much swing and miss. And he had a really hot start to the season, 13 home runs, in the month in total in the months of April and May. And a big July, but he was atrocious in August. He got injured in September. I still worry that there are going to be platoon issues with Gorman. Even though, for the most part, he actually hit lefties. He hit 260. He was actually worse against righties.
Believe it or not. Now, tiny sample, 86 plate appearances against lefties, but worth noting that he was better against them.
It was a small sample, though, because they were not using him a ton.
Exactly. So. And I think that can continue, but man, you showed 27 bombs in 464 plate appearances at age 23. That gets me excited just in general. I feel like he could be the Brandon Lowe. He could go 39-99.
Yeah,
which is the new hotness. I don't know about the 99 to be honest, because they'd have to bat him higher. But I really do think he can hit mid to upper 30s homers this year, 2024, for Nolan Gorman. I'm pretty keen on him, and I think the price is fair to buy in on a rising study. It isn't inside the top 200. You need him to do something for you, but you still have wiggle room that if it ends up being 20 homers with a 220 average, of course that would be a negative on your draft price, but it's not killing your season.
Yeah.
And I don't really see, of course it's in the cards, anything can happen, but I don't really see a 9 homer, 174 average and get sent out type of season from him.
I know I can see that.
I know the swing and miss is there, but the
contact skills are atrocious.
But that's always been the case with him, and that's a power guy in general. So I don't know. I when he's on, right? You talked about the ups and downs with Nolan Gorman's month to month. When a guy like that is going,
a really bad fielder.
That's fine. That doesn't bother me at all. Brendan Donovan can play second.
Yeah. He could DH. So
yeah.
I don't know.
I'm a fan.
I'm a little tentative on it. I see why people draft him. And
I'm in on that whole lineup, man. All the way down. Donovan, Goldschmidt, Nootbaar, Arenado, Contreras, Gorman, Walker, Edmund, Mason, Wynn. I'd take any of them at their prices.
Yeah.
Because their lineup wasn't the problem.
No.
It was all their pitching.
And they solved the pitching.
Yeah, they did.
Going into a nursing home and just signing a bunch of guys.
Well, and they're probably not done, though. They'll probably get another one or two guys that are a little bit cut below those other guys so they have some depth. And yeah,
cut below Kyle Gibson.
I mean, that would be like Jordan Lyles, but like more like Sonny Gray is what I was thinking, which I guess is Gibson and Lynn. But no, I think, as much as I don't want them to be, because like, why would I root for the Cardinals?
I don't think they will go and get anybody else because they've got two, pretty good pitching prospects in the minors that are going to be ready at some point. I think they're going to try to tread water with these older guys, hope that, Gibson is, pitches well like he did in Baltimore for a while. Lynn returns to form, and then if and when one of them fails, they're going to bring up a guy like Tink Hence.
Yeah, I think they need one more who's a swingman though. I don't like a decent bit of their bullpen. What?
Steven Matz.
Steven Matz is in the rotation.
Yeah, he's going to be a swingman. Let's be honest.
No. They're going to sign one more starter who's had some bullpen, time in his career, so he can bounce back and forth. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's inconsequential. Let's move on. We don't have enough time to debate the 50th pitcher on their team. Edward Julien was the guy that you had mentioned earlier, of course, when we were talking Minnesota. He's around pick 201. He's the on-base god. He's a little bit, more OBP league than regular league, but don't sleep on him in regular leagues because he still hit 263. It just came with a 381 OBP, 16 bombs and 3 steals in 109 games. We saw him in the fall league. We always talk about how it was kind of funny that he was in the home run derby because he isn't like exquisite power, but a 195 ISO, I'll take it all day. 16% walk rate. We know what the skills are here, but I feel like he could score 100 runs batting every day atop this order in Minnesota. Now, I don't know if they're going to play him every day against lefties, but I like Edward Julien, and I don't mind the price at pick 201. What say you about Julien, who you had mentioned earlier as someone to keep an eye
on? So he tends to just weirdly drop in drafts, especially in our Gladiators. I think I've gotten him twice in the Gladiator out of my 3 Gladiator drafts because he just sits there forever. Like there are a lot of people who just hate Edward Julien. I don't necessarily get why. Like
racism, you think? I'm just kidding.
I was like, oh shit. Starting that way on a Monday.
He's Canadian. Which isn't. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to be funny.
I guess there's like, obviously like he got some, pretty good BABIP luck, 371 BABIP. I will say though, that's like the second lowest BABIP he's ever had at any spot in his career.
Because he smacks the piss out of the ball. When he decides to swing, right? Like when you own the plate that much, when he decides to swing, it's usually for good reason. He's one of these guys, Edward Julien, pay attention, folks, to his skills here. 31% K rate might scare you off a bit, and I grant that it's high, but it's a 10% swinging strike rate. A lot of his Ks are because of the depth of counts that he gets into, right? It's like how Joey Votto has a pretty decently high K rate in some of his seasons. Well, when you get in that many deep counts and you take that many walks, you're going to have some Ks. It doesn't mean you're up there flailing Javi Baez style. So don't overrate the 31% K rate in terms of Julien's skills. I wouldn't make a skills mark. I wouldn't put a negative mark on his skills based on the strikeout rate necessarily.
There are 3 star hitters. I mean, you might debate whether they're stars or not, or some of them are stars or not. But there are 3 star hitters in Major League Baseball that have higher swinging strike rates than his O swing. Nick Castellanos, Luis Robert, and Teoscar Hernandez all have higher swinging strike rates than Julien's O swing, which was 17.2%.
Wow. Yeah, and I would say star level on Castellanos, Teoscar, and who was the third?
Luis Robert.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Those are all stars to superstar level, and their swinging strike rate is higher than his O swing.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
It's unreal. Like he has an unreal understanding of the strike zone. There is power in that bat. I think the Twins want him to play every day and lead off.
Bingo.
For this team. I love Julien this year. I understand why, he is too passive at times, but like there's going to be a lot of runs scored. He's going to hit 20 plus home runs. I think the batting average will be in the 250-ish range. But there's going to be a ton, like those of you in on-base percentage leagues, he's going to be an on-base percentage god. Those
Absolutely.
of you in points leagues, I know we don't talk a lot of points league content, but like he could be a points league god because he never strikes out. He walks a ton, and there's pop. There's going to be a ton of runs. Like I like Julien. I don't understand why other people are shying away from him so much, and I'm sure I will get tweeted at for the reasons why, but. Please, someone enlighten me to why everybody, or not everybody, a lot of people hate Edouard Julien.
Yeah, I don't quite get it either. And again, I think maybe one thing is they're overrating that K rate as an indictment of who he is, or combination of overrating the K rate and thinking that his BABIP being 371 is just wholly unsustainable. Now, I don't usually go projecting somebody with that high of a BABIP, but as you mentioned, that's his second lowest as a pro. His lowest was a 322 in high A. Again, he crushes the ball, 14% barrel. Or 13%. I really, really like Edouard Julien. We're big fans around pick 200, and he usually goes later. So if you want to kind of bypass that ADP and wait another round or two, you got a good chance of still getting him unless you're in a draft with one of us. Let's talk some batting average Oases. I don't know. I do know. I looked it up, but that is the plural of Oasis, is Oases, Oasis.
I love how you looked that up.
I was like, because that just sounds like Oasis, except you replace the I with an E. I like Oasii, Oasii. I think that's what it should be, to be honest. But anyway, I'm not here to debate that. I could have just said something else for the title, but I like them thinking of them as an Oasis because we talk often about how batting average is difficult to get late, and these three guys come at pick 250 or later, and they can give you something in that batting average. So you're like, ooh, I found a little something here, a little drip of water, of batting average water here with Whit Merrifield at pick 250, Brendan Donovan, the aforementioned, at 284, and Jeff McNeil at 320. Let's start with Whit. I believe he's a free agent, so we don't know where he's going to be.
He opted out of his contract.
Okay, so that's going to drive a lot of everything. So let's just talk in general terms right now because we don't know where he's going to be. Let's assume he's a mostly full-time player, right? Like a 75, 80% type player. He might not be 100% somewhere, and he could go somewhere where they want to play him every single day. So let's just kind of work in the 75 to 80%. He went 11 and 26 last year on the homers and steals with Toronto, 272 average, and was pretty darn good despite a 93 WRC plus, right? Like that's below average, but he was the 12th ranked second baseman according to the auction calculator in 5x5 15 teamers last year. What do you think of Whit Merrifield? Again, I know he needs to go somewhere that's going to let him run, but let's assume that he is going to get to run and be himself for 75 to 80% of the season. Are you interested in him at the ADP of 250?
I probably won't draft him until I know for sure where he goes. But if he does end up, like you said, in this scenario, he ends up in a place where he's going to play every day and he's on a team. Hey, maybe like my Giants.
I could see
might let him run and play him every day. Like, yeah, I'd be fine with 250. You're going to get 20 plus stolen bases. Probably single-digit home runs, depending on what park.
Especially if you went to San Fran. Well, although where would he play? Because Thairo's got second locked, and then you guys do have Conforto and Yaz in the
Thairo can play short.
Oh, yeah. Marco Luciano's penciling in at short. Yeah. That's what it would be. Put Whit back at second. And Thairo to short. Okay, go ahead. You're just throwing out a potential.
Or they just mix and match the way that the Giants have been.
The way they have been the last couple of years, that nobody has a set
play
position.
The outfield, he can play. And the Giants are another team that are injured all the time anyway. So like, they'll. It's not like Mitch Haniger staying on the field or Mike Yastrzemski.
Hey, how dare you?
Love those guys.
Those health stalwarts like Michael Conforto. I mean, we wish them the best. But yeah, so Whit. I think I'm with you though. It is just hard to draft somebody like this without knowing exactly where they're going to be, because I do think his landing spot
tied up into,
exactly. And he's 35, right? Like he could easily be a backup somewhere where he's playing 60% of the time.
I will say he told a funny story, and I can't remember what podcast it was, about Danny Duffy tricking a rookie. when they went to Canada.
Oh God, what did he tell him?
He told them that they didn't shake hands in Canada when you greet someone, that they saluted each other.
No,
That's
so funny.
He told them the name of their currency was Canada.
I mean, it's called loonies and toonies. It's not that different. It's not that different.
It was a very, very funny story. Apparently, Danny Duffy is a huge prankster and hilarious.
That sounds fun.
Yeah,
I like that. I want that story. So if you find that, I want to hear that, because that sounds great. Duffy's somebody I always root for, and to find out that he seems like a fun dude, that's hilarious. But that's great that he tricked some rookie into being saluting. And Canada is Canada. That's so funny. That's so funny to me. All right, moving back over to Brendan Donovan. I did briefly mention when we were talking Gorman. Things were coming together last year, and then he got hurt. I think the breakout was upon us. The power breakout that we had seen in spring that people were drafting him for, he still had it, even though he only played 95 games. He hit 11 homers, which was more than 2 times what he put up in 126 games the year before with 5. So the power breakout was upon us, and things were back in order. He had started slowly, but he got the batting average back on track. I remember because somebody cut him in my league. I picked him up. Things were going brilliantly, and then he got hurt. So he winds up with 11 homers, 5 steals in 371 plate appearances with a 284 average. Should Brendan Donovan be higher than 284 ADP? That matches his batting average. That's cute. What do you think?
Yes, he should. And I think he will be. I think once we start getting news that he is going to be ready for opening day, or when he's going to be ready, that he's probably going to rise, because I don't think that this went unnoticed. The bummer of the matter is, like, he's no longer eligible at 17 different positions.
Yeah, only second in outfield, partly because he was limited to 95 games. I'll still take it. Yeah.
Infield, he starts with infield, outfield. He can pick up other eligibilities in season. He spent most of his at-bats, or I think a third of his at-bats, hitting second in this lineup. It's a great lineup to hit second in. It's not a ton of power, but you're talking low teens, home runs, a boatload of runs scored, multi-positional eligibility. I love Brendan Donovan, but he's also the guy that, like, in every single one of my drafts, there's one person that just snipes me every time. I don't even want to say they love him more, because I was one of the highest people on Brendan Donovan last year, but I just haven't gotten him yet, and I'm bummed, because I know once we get more news, he's probably going to jump up 30 picks.
Yeah, I could certainly see that, because I agree that Brendan Donovan should be going higher than he is, and I will take advantage of that where I can. Like I said, liked him last year, back in this year for sure. I'll take the infield, outfield. I got him in our first Gladiator. He got yoinked out from under me in our second.
There you go. But you were the guy.
I was the guy in the first one, yes. I was trying to see if it was the first or second there, because I knew I had taken him in one of ours. But yeah, I just I couldn't agree with you more on what we're saying here with regards to Brendan Donovan, and I'm excited to see what happens with him this year. I hope he doesn't go too high, but I feel like he could jump. I mean, for me, I wouldn't be against a low 200s pick. Like if he jumped up 60, 75 picks from 280, 290, I'd be okay with that. I'm willing to pay even more over here. So that's totally fine by me, but don't raise up the price in my drafts. Leave me alone. Let me just pick him cheaply. Let's talk Jeff McNeil, who, I mean, it's more or less empty batting average, but a lot of that is covered in the cost, because now he's down to 320, up to 307 in the last month, but 320 over the course of all the DCs. He's also second in outfield. Do you like Mets second base outfielder Jeff McNeil at all?
I haven't in the past, but this price feels too good to pass up.
And he did go 10-10 last year. Credit where it's due. A nice little double there.
I don't know how I can say I like Brendan Donovan and then turn around and be like, I hate Jeff McNeil at a 320 price. Like that's the
thing. If you like Donovan, how can you not like McNeil 50 plus picks later?
We're talking about a guy that is a season removed from hitting 326. Like, don't draft Luis Urias. Just wait and draft, Jeff.
100% agree with that.
Yeah, like Just
100% agree with that. Yes.
No, I don't think the Mets are going to be very good. So McNeil hitting the top of that lineup probably isn't going to be super interesting, but it's still a fair amount of runs, scored, got 75 last year, double in terms of, 10 home runs, 10 stolen bases. Was able to stay healthy, to be second straight season where he's gotten over 145 games played. So yeah, I mean, and he's another guy who he's starting second base outfield, but if he's eligible for 4 positions by the end of the season, I'm not going to be surprised.
Yeah. I actually think the Mets are going to be sneaky decent now that they're not going to have any expectation. Right? As I go the other way of like expectations on them.
It's just so rough after Senga.
Yeah, well,
if they land Yamamoto, then
all bets are off. Obviously, everyone's but the expectations would come again, and so I'd probably go the other way, right? It's in a weird way. Yes, the Yamamoto would obviously make them better, but it would probably raise the expectations higher than I would buy. But right now, I can buy them as like a fringe wildcard contender. I mean, with everything falling apart last year, they were 75 and 87. They can flip that record next year pretty easily, even without much pitching, like you said, beyond Senga. Quintana's good, but he's 35. Severino's a total wild card at 30. Lucchesi, McGill, we don't know if they're going to get Yamamoto. So I hear you on that, but they'll get other guys to fill in if they don't get Yamamoto. Again, I'm not here to cape for them like they're going to be great. I just think that with no expectation, they'll probably be a bit better.
It seems to be division is so rough.
That is definitely true.
Even the Marlins
I think the Marlins are going to stay. You know what? I think the Nats, your Nats, I always associate them with, because you love Gray and Abrams, Luis Garcia, Mackenzie Gore. Yeah, Keyboom. So in my head, they're your Nats. Obviously, I know that's not your favorite team, but I do associate them with you. So your Nats.
And I grew up in DC. I just grew up before the Nationals.
That's right. Yeah. You might have been a fan of them had timing been a bit different.
Had I not lost a bet, I probably would have been a fan of them.
Well, anyway, I think they could be a little bit more interesting next year too, which only makes the Mets road a bit harder if they're not getting free wins in DC. Let's talk about a couple speed guys coming late. Amed Rosario at 334 and Brice Turang at 339. A couple different guys here. You got the one guy who is unsigned right now, right? Amed Rosario's a free agent too. Yes. Mm-hmm. Second and short. And then you got the on the rise youngster in Brice Turang in Milwaukee. They're similar prices. I know you're going to tell me you need to see where Rosario's going. Let's do the same thing with that we did with Whit Merrifield, though. Let's assume he goes somewhere where he's going to play about 75, 80% of the time. They're both second and short. Their prices aren't that different. You want Rosario or Turang as your speed guy there late in the draft?
I think, oh man, that's tough. Because I think the greater upside is Rosario. And because we've seen it before, right?
Exactly.
We have seasons on the books for Rosario where he, 2022, hit 283, 11-18. But
2021 was almost a carbon copy.
Yeah.
So 2 straight seasons of very similar work.
And I do think he's going to land somewhere in a full-time role.
I think so too. I think he's seeking that out.
The only real issue with Rosario is he is atrocious defensively.
So bad. He plays second and third or second and short. I put in extreme quotes if you're not watching on YouTube, because he's not good up the middle. I think that's why they dabbled with outfield they left
him off the postseason roster.
Yeah.
Just so bad defensively. And how many teams want a bad defensive player up the middle? Could he end up becoming a super utility guy? Which then you're like, oh no, can he get to 500 plate appearances?
I guess it would depend on the team at that point, right?
Yeah, I think if you're drafting right now, if you are drafting a 15-teamer right now, I'm gonna take Turang because as much as I don't think Turang has amazing upside, he does have plenty of speed and he's a wizard with a glove, and so I think he is gonna play every day. And I do think there's a world in which the Brewers trade Willy Adames and Turang moves over to shortstop every day and plays there. If you're playing in a 12-team league, give me the upside on Rosario right now and hope that his landing spot is a good one.
I think that's fair. I might just pass anyway.
Yeah.
But looking at it, it's like, yeah, I think that checks out what you're saying there. Turang's bat is unimpressive. I'm not sure it's going to get better. I think it's better than a 60 WRC plus, but I don't think there's like a huge breakout coming. But he still stole 26 bases.
Yeah, and
so with the guaranteed PT thanks to his glove, that's a pretty huge deal. So I do like that aspect for Turang. And then Rosario, it's really going to depend on where he lands. And he's never shown that kind of speed. He's been a solid double-digit guy for each of the last 5 full seasons, obviously 2020 excluded. But 24 is his peak, and that was all the way back in 18. Whereas, like I said, Turang dropped 26 just last year. So I think you can go either way with it. I do agree with you there, and I do think the league type can play a role there. And we'll see where Rosario goes, and then we'll reassess him, of course, when he signs somewhere. All right, let's move on. We've got the young gambles here. It's a fun group, and it includes your boy Luis Garcia, by the way. But we got Gavin Lux at 273 ADP, Jordan Westburg in Baltimore at 291, Michael Massey with the Royals at 355, Luis Garcia with the Nats at 369, Miguel Vargas, at least currently with the Dodgers, at 378, and Geraldo Perdomo with the D-backs at 425. These young gambles here, unfortunately, the most expensive one's the guy who didn't play last year. I still love him. I cannot quit Gavin Lux.
I've already drafted him twice this year.
I got him once, and I'm not.
And the Dodgers
done.
have already kind of committed to him as being like an everyday shortstop there in.
I think he was going to be
LA.
so good last year, dude. I think I can't prove it, obviously, but I do think the breakout was coming. The fact that the Dodgers are going to remain committed to him emboldens my belief there. I love him. I'm still paying $278. I wish there was a bigger discount, but the market is not quitting him either.
Yeah, and the market's with us. Yeah. So this is probably my favorite tier to shop in. Like, it's just all these guys.
It's fun tier.
Not all these guys, but most of these guys are guys that I've either already drafted or I have no problem drafting. Lux at the top of that list. I just think there is a massive season down the line. Maybe it's not this year. I'm hoping it is this year because I've already drafted him 2 of my 3 leagues. But I do think that there is a massive season one of these years coming for Gavin Lux, and I'm hoping it's this year.
No, I think that's huge upside still. And he's still second outfield, right? He keeps his eligibility from last year, Gavin Lux does. And like I said, the market's with us. I still don't think it's a crazy price, of course, but it is the most expensive of this group. And like I said,
the problem
0 games played last year.
If you ignore what the sheet says, it's already up to 257.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so from 273.
So
the market really
it's moving up and up and up.
What's your cutoff? Inside the top 200 for Lux?
Yeah, probably.
I think so too. And I do think that could happen in spring. A good solid spring. It doesn't even have to be crazy. Just a healthy spring, and he's going pick 175. Yep. But hopefully we both have our shares by then, so it wouldn't be so bad. Jordan Westburg in Baltimore, right? They've got a similar issue to Cincinnati where they got too many guys, which is a good problem to have for a real life team, but can be difficult for fantasy folks to figure out. What do we do with Jordan Westburg? Is he ready to emerge, or do you think he's somebody that's difficult to bet on due to playing time? He had 68 games with them last year. He was a league average bat. Not a bad little showing. Not a ton of hype there. Is Jordan Westburg somebody that's on your target list?
Not really. There have been times where I really needed a second baseman and I'm like, oh, Jordan Westburg's still there. And every time I kind of go look at the profile, I'm like, all right, well, I guess I understand why Jordan Westburg's there. He is just, I think you described him perfectly by calling him a league average bat. I think that's kind of what he is. I don't think he is super, super enticing in any particular category. I think at best he is an accumulator. But in order to be an accumulator, you need to have guaranteed playing time every day. And I don't know that he's got that. I don't know what they're going to do in Baltimore. I think it would almost be better if he was part of a trade for some pitching or something like that. At the way things stand at this moment, I don't care. I think he's too boring with questionable playing time.
If Jordan Westburg falls closer to his max of 351, does that do anything for you? It's about 4 rounds from his average. So I don't know how often he's falling down there, but if he were in the
is he any different? Is Jordan Westburg any different than the guys we're about to talk about in terms of Michael Massey and Luis Garcia. Like,
No,
I don't know that
they're
he
already
is.
down there. Yeah, they're already down at
Yeah.
350 permanently. So I think
And
that's
I think
fair.
both of those guys have greater upside.
And then you're basically asking, is team context worth 50, 60 picks? Because obviously Westburg's is better.
The
But
park isn't good. Like,
not for a righty.
Probably worst park to hit in baseball, right? Like,
is he bad right? Yeah, he's a right-hander. So the park is not. We've seen what it's done to Mountcastle. So I think that's totally fair. Let's move on to Massey and Garcia. Then Massey, we've already been gassing up the Royals a bit. I was big on Massey last year. Might be a classic Sporer year early situation, but I'm going back to the well with Massey. I still saw some glimpses of what I wanted there in the second half. 15 homers, 6 steals, 73 WRC plus, right? It was a bust. It did not work out. You had cut him long before. You might have gotten back on the train because he was on the waiver wire for quite some time, Michael Massey was. But again, down the stretch, I started to see some of those things that had made me interested in spring. And I'm going to go back to the 26-year-old this year, Michael Massey, because I still believe he can be solid. Are you bought in on him at his price of what did I say it was, 350?
Yeah, he's been one of my biggest targets this season. And I'm pretty excited to draft him this year. I think the plate skills are pretty decent. I think they're finally going to let him play every day. And I just think that there is a potential breakout coming. And it's not like a massive breakout where we're like, oh, he's not doing 4,100. He's not low.
The numbers of the day, 4,100.
But like, I think mid 20s home runs with a decent batting average.
Yep.
On the table for a guy like Massey is in the cards. And
I agree.
And like I said, I think they've brought in a lot of people. They have not brought in a second baseman. So unless they bring in a second baseman, I think Massey's the dude, and I'm all about it.
Yep. Me too. Like I said, doubling down from last year. It didn't quite go as I wanted. September was strong. Think he can build on that. And again, I don't think you're paying too much of a price to try. And if it does flop again, we move on and no harm, no foul. And we probably don't jump back in 2025. But right now, I'm in. Luis Garcia, mentioned him earlier when I was talking about your Nats. Pick 369. We still haven't quite seen the breakout, but I think he's like going to turn 17 in a couple weeks. He's still so unbelievably young. He's literally 24 with parts of 4 seasons under his belt. So, now it's 1,245 plate appearances of just an 85 WRC plus, but that's a lot of experience. Solid plate skills, had a colossal improvement in swinging strike rate last year, cut it damn near in half. Are we ready to see something from Luis Garcia to build on his 9 homers and steals season last year? What do you think of the 24-year-old Garcia in Washington?
Why do the Nationals hate Luis Garcia?
I don't know, man. It's getting to be a Mott-like intensity.
It is. It is a Mott-like intensity. Shout out to the 06010, now the defunct 06010. I just don't understand why they hate him so much. David Martinez already said he's not guaranteed to have the second base job about a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago, which is just insane to me. Like, he's 24. Give him the opportunity. Like, I know he's not great defensively, but like, he can hit the ball. Like, and
just let him play.
If I knew he was playing every day, he would probably be one of my more drafted guys, especially in draft champions. Or deeper formats, because he is a perfect accumulator. That being said, not knowing if he's going to play every day makes it really hard to draft him. So especially in draft champions, whereas the place I'd like to draft him the most, because if he got sent down to the minor leagues when he wasn't even doing poorly, like he was fine.
I know.
Like, and so
he got Edward Olivares. Oh, he was traded, by the way. We could have brought that up. He's no longer in KC, but we still love him.
Yeah.
Good luck in Pittsburgh. Go ahead, Luis Garcia.
I don't know. I don't know what to do with him. I mean, I'm taking gambles here and there and stuff because I just don't see anybody else on the roster that's going to supplant him. The problem with the Nationals, if they've got a Rocky type history, where they will bring in guys who are like 40 to play middle.
Alcides freaking Escobar, dude,
and lead them off. You're like, oh, what did the Royals do when they won the World Series? Like,
They let off Alcides Escobar. That's why they won. Let's just do that.
Right, yeah.
Success will follow. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a good call. They are Rockies East over here with some of the ways they handle guys, and it's frustrating. 369 does protect you a bit on Luis Garcia. If he flops again, that's not killing your season, but I do believe there's some upside. I agree they need to commit to him. Probably somebody I get like a share of as opposed to loading up on. Let's talk Miguel Vargas. We've speculated that he might be involved in a trade. Just because they did the Glasnow deal, folks, doesn't mean they're done. If they got a Burns or a Cease, we'd be literally 0% surprised. You know, Yamamoto's still on the table for them too, because again, we have to reiterate what's that?
I said, of course, because of course he is. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, because Ohtani doesn't help the pitching. And so Glasnow alone, Mr. Glass himself, right? Like kind of a fitting last name for his health profile, doesn't fix it. So there's probably another trade in the offing. I still think Cease for like Vargas and Bush or something makes a lot of sense, but let's operate with Vargas in LA right now, fighting for PT. Pick 369. Are you still in on Vargas? Because we were both pretty high on him last year, and it didn't really come to fruition, unfortunately.
Nope.
You're out now?
I mean, where does he play?
Yeah, I know.
Until he gets traded. If he gets traded, then
how quickly do you turn if he goes to Chicago? If that my fictional Cease trade, if that comes through, let's say he goes up 120 picks to 250. Would you still draft Miguel Vargas?
Yeah, sure, why not? Like, I don't have a problem with that. Like, I think, like I wouldn't get overly saturated. He wouldn't become my dude or anything like that.
Sure.
But, like, I just want to see him have an opportunity to play. Like,
exactly.
I think he can at worst be a league average bat. And I think more. I do still think that he is just a better real life player than a fantasy guy. Like, I don't think
that's fair. Good on base guy.
He's great on base guy. I think he can make good contact. He's got a little bit of sneaky speed. But ultimately, like, I don't know that he's good enough defensively, and I don't know that he is, going to power things out unless he ended up in Cincinnati. That'd be perfect for Cincinnati. Just complicate things further.
Get Miguel Vargas. I swear to God, if they do, I'll freak out. Remember when spring, when he was so hurt that he couldn't swing the bat and he was still drawing walks? That tells you how hard it is to just throw pitches in the zone, by the way. We'll just throw it in the zone. It's not that hard when you're trying to throw as hard as you can. But he literally was instructed to not swing, and I believe he drew a handful of walks in spring training. So, I like Miguel Vargas. I agree with you on the real life over fantasy now.
I won't draft him until we see a move. Because there is a world in which the Dodgers go, no, he's a great bench guy. Like,
depth. I think we need depth too. They can say that. Like,
I think Michael Bush has to be traded. Miguel Vargas does not have to be traded.
Agreed. I wouldn't mind him in Milwaukee either. So Burns or Cease deal would open up things from Vargas in a big way. I just want to point that out. Neither of those deals are being rumored right now, but I would kill for any of them. Henry, you're gonna have to wait, buddy, because I'm the only one here right now. Geraldo Perdomo, pick 425. I'm gonna let you get started on him, and I'm gonna go run and let the dogs out. 425 feels a bit late. I'm a Geraldo Perdomo guy. Maybe I'm a sucker on him. League average guy after a dreadful 2022, but they committed to him for the full year, so I loved that. They give him another full year. He rewards them with strong plate skills and a league average bat and a great glove. He was an all-star, but is he another better real life than fantasy type guy? Geraldo Perdomo, get us started. I'll be right back. I'm gonna let the dogs out.
Yeah, I think he is probably a little bit better of a real life guy than he is a fantasy guy. I also think I think the reason why the ADP is so low is because there's fear that Jordan Lawler is going to take his job, especially now that Eugenio Suarez is in the picture. That's just one extra infielder into the mix that all of a sudden, like, there's a reasonable, outcome in which Jordan Lawler is just too good for AAA. And
you better not have been talking crap about me.
Yeah, I was. Absolutely was.
Dang it. Okay, go ahead. AAA, Jordan Lawler.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jordan Lawler is throwing you in the minors after the Eugenio Suarez. But, like, if Lawler just proves to be way better than AAA and that he's major league ready, like, the Diamondbacks want to get back to the World Series. Like, and I don't think Perdomo is special enough to hold back Lawler. No, because Perdomo can play multiple positions and be a utility infielder kind of guy. And
why can't Lawler do that then?
Because Lawler is the future.
Perdomo's 24.
But he's not the future.
Why not? He's a switch hitting shortstop who can play the position, who was just an all-star. What are we talking about? Perdomo's a dude.
I think he's fine.
I think he's a dude.
I think
he's a dude.
And I mean, I had Perdomo on like every team last year, or at least every draft champions team, because
you listened to me.
How dare you? I've been a Perdomo guy for a while, but
I didn't dissuade you on somebody like Kimbrel.
Exactly. Well, because he was going like outside the top 500 picks last year. Like, and it's
exactly.
Like, I think he's going to play every day. Like, I don't know where he's going to play, but he's going to play every day. And I want guys at the end of my freaking draft champions leagues that I know are going to get plate appearances. So
it's hard to be a bigger endorsement than getting 500 plate appearances when you're putting up a 60 WRC plus.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't just that, we don't have anybody else. They believed in their guy and they wanted to stay committed. It was a 243 BABIP that hurt him. He had a 21% K, 10% walk. This is Perdomo in 2022 I'm talking about. And so they were saying, we're sticking with our guy. We'll see what he can do at age 23. And so, yeah, I was with you last year. I loved him. And he rewarded them. I hear you on Lawler, but I'm not going to stay away from Perdomo because of that, because he's picked 425 too. Like, this can't hurt you.
No, it's not.
So even if he did get usurped, and I'm wrong on that, then I'll eat the L, but I'm going to pay 425 all day for Perdomo.
And I know you hate when I say this, but
No, he's not.
He is free in in non-draft champions leagues. I mean,
correct.
450 picks in
that is fair.
30 round draft. So like 425, like, yeah, he's free. Like,
he's like literally your last pick, and you're not too worried about it.
Job, he turns back into a pumpkin offensively. Like, you get rid of him, but he's got a 91% zone contact. Like, like he's got pretty damn good contact skills. So I think he could be an accumulator, which was what we saw from him kind of last year, and I think he could do that again. So while I did say some negative things, you missed it because you left. I said I understand why he's being drafted that low.
Got it.
Because of
Lawler's creeping.
Potential concerns. But ultimately, I think even if let's say he loses the job, let's say Lawler is killing it first month in AAA and comes up and he is the everyday shortstop moving forward because he is the future. That doesn't mean that Perdomo is not going to find his way into the lineup 5 times a week.
Yep. I think so too. I think there'll be playing time.
Everybody days off.
We talked about Marte, and while he is great, his health record has not been awesome. And so there would be an avenue there. So yeah, I totally agree with that. I like Perdomo. I'm buying him at that price for sure. There could be some upside, but even if there's not, you give me a carbon copy of last year, I got no issues with that. So we like Geraldo Perdomo. Yeah, I know you're coming up on time here. We got a few guys. Let's run through them quickly. Crusty Vets. Brendan Rodgers at 380, Jake Cronenworth at 382, and Zach McKinstry is already been around for a bit, so I threw him in here too at 416. You drafted any of these three at those prices in DCs?
Probably not. Maybe
McKinstry. I don't know, man. I've been a Cronenworth guy. Last year was dreadful, dude.
I know, but he's gonna play every day because of the contract.
Yeah.
How bad does that contract look?
It looks pretty tough now. And him at first base, where he just doesn't really profile.
He doesn't profile. Yeah.
Oh, that's tough. And I like Crony. I want him to bounce back, but I am nervous on
I like what McKinstry did for me last year. I was big on him coming into the year. But I want to find the next Zach McKinstry. I don't want to pay for last year's.
That's fair. But I would counter by saying you're not really paying $416 for a guy who went 9-16 isn't much, but I hear you. Looking for the next one there, get him even cheaper than $416 in a DC. Yeah. All right, and I did a little anyone else category with 3 guys that I had: Davis Schneider at 412, Liover Peguero at 430, and Luis Urias at 524. That's actually the one I really want to highlight. He went out to the Mariners from the Red Sox, and I think he's going to play. I don't know why he's going 524. I'm drafting Luis Urias in DC. He's already up to 474 in the last month, but even that is still dirt cheap. Are you with me on Urias, or am I out to lunch on that one?
I mean, I could see it the way the lineup's currently constructed. I just wonder, are they really going to enter the season with?
They got rid of Suarez.
I know, I can't imagine they're entering the season with him and Josh Rojas at second and third base. I know
That's your
Rojas
buddy
played
at
well
second.
down
How
the
dare you?
stretch, and I'm kind of hoping they do give him a chance. But like Luis Urias has not been good for a little while, and
It's been some time.
now he's moving to a much harder park to hit in. It's just kind of like empty grossness,
Well,
to be honest.
actually, if we look back at it now, it was just last year that was bad. He was actually a 110 WRC plus in 2022, which I didn't realize either. I thought he had 2 years.
Getting hurt is what it was. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And so I don't know. I like Urias. I can't quit him. I think he's somebody that does offer upside. He's still only going to be 27. The magic year, oh my God, he's going to have an amazing season. But he has good plate skills, a little bit of punch. It's not a great bat. It's like this is another accumulator bat. But if you're giving him to me at nearly pick 500, 474 in the last month, 524 for the entire DC run, I'm in. So I kind of like Urias. What about Peguero in Pittsburgh or Davis Schneider? Anything on Davis Schneider? Because obviously he was
I think the skills are really,
total
really
fade,
bad,
right? Yeah.
Just like complete fade. Like, yeah.
Even like 50th pick in DC, I'm barely interested.
Yeah. Peguero's a little bit interesting. Like, yeah,
I agree.
He strikes out a little bit or a lot of bit. I don't think the batting average is ever going to be great, but he makes league average zone contact. There is some pop and some speed in the profile. And I think there's a chance he can get somewhat regular playing time in Pittsburgh.
I think it's more than a chance. I think he's a starting middle infielder for them.
I think, yeah, I definitely.
And that's why I like Peguero.
I definitely could see a path for that. Yeah, I mean, especially considering how late. Where did you say Peguero's going?
Yeah, he's been going in the sheet. So for the whole draft champions, it's 430.
430
in the last month. Yeah, he's holding that same area. So 430 something for Peguero. That's nothing. And I think he can be a different makeup, but the same vibe as what we were saying with Perdomo, an accumulator who can be about a league average bat. The makeup of it might be a little different. But yeah, I like Peguero. Anybody else that you want to mention as you're headed out? Because I know you got to go do your chat. You mentioned Josh Rojas. He's 485. You want to?
Josh Rojas. I mean, he played well down the stretch after being traded to Seattle. I think they're going to reward him with a strong side platoon job at second. He's second and third eligible. Jace Young, prospect for the Tigers, could be up at some point. I think.
What picks he at?
6'18".
I'm adding him to the sheet here. Yeah, I love his brother, and I'm excited about what Jace could do for the Tigers. And I agree. And they're getting him situated. I think he's getting some third base reps as well because third base is more open. I think he and Colt Keith are going to play some third in effort to maybe have them ready to go at third because their bats are both intriguing for the Tigers.
Last guy I'll mention, people are going to laugh at me when I say this, but Vidal Brujan got traded to the Marlins.
Miami. Yeah.
Right now he is not penciled in a spot, but like he could be like a super utility guy for them on a team that has guys that tend to get injured a fair amount and could use some help defensively up the middle. So like
I'm pulling for him, but he's still just 26.
There's a ton of speed in the profile and there's a little bit of pop, and he's like I think going pick 6 something.
625.
Sure. Take a dart throw right there and at 625 and see if something can pan out.
You could get double digit speed from him. I've been a huge Brujan guy. I've definitely soured on that a bit.
Bases in AAA in 276 plate appearances. If he why can't he be John Birdie for the Marlins?
Exactly. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm not going to quit him. Despite not really getting much from him yet, I do still have some hope for Vidal Brujan. So good call out there. All right, that's second base in the books. If there's anybody that we didn't mention that you guys want to give some love to, like an Owen Miller, Thomas Sajaci, Emmanuel Valdez, whomever, put them in the comments. If I see any comments in there, I can bring them up to Justin at the beginning of the next show. But Justin, you got to get your chat going. So I'll talk to you later. Peace.
Take it easy.